So there's this history of integration, making something your own and sending it back out there is extremely core to the concepts of Filipino martial arts. So in that, I said to myself, if I was to develop my own set of Seguidas and my own principles that I've learned traveling through Europe with my European family and throwing them into more modern day context, how would I represent those? So I'm going to take the basics of Espada Daga from FCS and we're going to kind of plug some of those things in. First thing we're going to do is let's grab a set of Espada Daga, and then we're going to warm up with some footwork and some basic stances. So part of what I'm going to do as well is I've developed the first FCS rapier. So this is a hybrid of Filipino and Spanish technology to embody the concept of Espada Daga from the LARGO perspective, using it a lot for long-range weaponry. So first thing we're going to take a look at is the basic footwork, and we're going to do this two ways. I'm going to do it to represent and help the guys in Europe who have no partners, and I'm going to do it for the guys in the US who can kind of maybe have a partner or would like to see the demonstration of the idea. So the first thing is warm-up footwork. We have three basic ways we hold our body, which you're used to seeing. I have my Espada Daga here. I can just have it out for right now. One is going to be the lunge stance. So from this here, we'll go ahead and use Renee's impact elastico shot. So I'm going to go one and lunge out with my technique and come back to a center guard. This is the center guard position. So lunge and back, lunge and back, lunge and back. So go ahead and work that for about a minute or two. I'm going to demo it with this so you see the original principle in motion. So from right here, I have my rapier. The lunge happens here and back, here and back, here and back. That's the original representation of the lunge when it first faced off against FMA. So from right here, elastico, lunge, and back. Elastico, lunge, and back. Elastico at me. There we go. Lunge and back. Elastico, lunge. Good. Okay. So the next basic stance, we have the lunge. Now we're going to have what we call, for a better word, just to describe it, is what we call the crane or the bird stance, which is to pick up the back leg. So this is the middle stance, the lunge. I have the option, if I'm here, to scoot back and bring my footwork up to get me completely out of range. This idea is going from medial all the way down to largo without having to move my body and do big motions. So from right here, we're going to go elastico, lunge, and then come back and lean back like this and come back to guard. So elastico lunge, sweep your foot on the ground so you have contact the whole time, lift it up and lean back a little. Elastico lunge, sweep it back and come back a little. The original principle being here. I lunge, let's say he parries, he returns, I put myself back in range. Okay? So again, I lunge, he parries, he comes in, I come out, and I'm back in range. One more time, I lunge, he parries, I zone out, I'm back in range. With the Espada Daga, from right here, I lunge, he parries, and I come back out of range. Okay? So I lunge, he parries, I come back out of range. Good. Okay, the next part is what we're going to call the lift. So you see this in some Chinese systems. You see it in yoga. It exists in FMA. Primarily, Tuhan teaches me a lot of the first generation stuff. You see this a lot in the Seguidas from Dulce, Paris, which is where they originally came from, then through Cody Chilson into Tuhan's hands, and then he revised them for FCS. So when you see this lineage, when you see it up to the point of FCS, it comes down this way. The reason we pick that back leg up is because it gives us a little bit of extra range we wouldn't have without having to move our body. So some of you have seen this pose, the warrior pose. This is this idea. So from right here, what we're going to work is we're going to go elastico. I'm going to come down, and when I come down, I'm going to lift my back leg up. So it's just like a tie block. If my tie block is here for kickboxing, I'm here, I pick my knee straight up towards the ceiling. So 1, knee up. 1, knee up. 1, knee up. Okay, classical representation. He's wary of me because of my long sword. I lunge and I thrust, and he leans back. Once I pick my foot up, there we are. I had a little extra range without moving my feet. One more time, I'm here. I lunge, doesn't work. And I just sink straight through the person. Okay? One more time, I lunge, it doesn't work. I sink straight through the person. Okay? Those are our 3 transitional footworks. So the idea being, here, anytime I'm tied up, let's say he comes in with a shot, and I'm here like this, all I have to do is I have to lift my back leg, and I have extra range to sink it at any time. I do it little in full contact and sparring. I just do this. That much works. If I'm here like this, and I can't reach him, as soon as I go, it's right there. Boom, instantly, and I'm out of range. So the time they swing back, I'm gone. So we look at the full picture. I'm here. I lunge in. He leans back. He throws his shot. I come back. I come in again. He parries. I sink straight through. Right. So I have, without picking my feet up, the ability to go from medio into complete largo into complete corto. I can hit him in the face with the puño if I wanted to. I just don't want to. Okay. So, and that again comes from this idea. Here, 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 here. Long distances can be scaled this way. Okay, good. So, next up, we're going to work our basic stances. We have 5 stances in Espada Daga. Just like any swordsmanship, there's usually 5 basic stances. We'll cycle the first 2. The first one is going to be the high stance, which is like this. My espada is high. If I was using just a sword, it would be high. And then I have low, which would be here, where it's low. We'll work it a little bit for the body mechanics with sidestep. So I'm going to sidestep, and I'm going to go 1, 2, and I'm going to roll. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Okay, so application. Original Espada Daga. I had to face this. From a high guard, anytime he comes in, I can pin him to the ground. He comes in with something, there's my thrust all the way through to the floor. From this position here, low, anytime he comes in, I can angle and go straight through the body. Okay? The palm being up gives me extra reach. The palm being down gives me extra strength to lock to the ground. Sometimes if I thrust at him and it's straight, he can run himself through and still come in. But if I come in high, let's say like to the brachial and I pin down, I range him out. So that's where the high line comes in. From low line, I might not have as much reach here. Once I go this way, look at how I get a little extra reach. And so it's harder to see because when the thrust is here, there's nothing to look at. I've used this very successfully in sparring. Okay, so from here, he comes in with a shot. I can pin straight down and stop him from moving. From right here, I can come straight through, and it's very hard to detect palm up. Okay, good. So the next one's going to be side. So we have high stance, low stance. We have the side stance, which is here. So I have my cruzada on one side, or I have my cruzada on the other. So I'm going to go side to side, and when I'm doing that, I'm unfolding my weapon so I don't get trapped. Equal, lock, equal, lock, equal, lock. It's a side to side. So I'm going to go from side stance to back stance. So back stance, let's say with a sword, side stance would be here, or it would be here. With a sword, backward stance would be here where I'm baiting down this way. Okay, so with the Espada Daga, it's here, like this, if my opponent's that way, or it's here, like this, because I'm covering both sides. I can do it either way. When we look at our Seguida number 4, we see these principles in motion. Okay, so we're going to go from side to back, side to back, side to back, side to back. Original representation. From a side stance, here, my arm is forward for a bait. So in this position, if my weapon's here, he comes in for the cut, I can offline, off angle, and bait a response for an opening. Okay? Either way works. If it's here like this, he can base for this arm, and then there's my thrust right there. From the back perspective, if I'm here like this, I'm accounting that he's going to step in with that, and then it comes straight through. Okay? A detail with back is I don't do this. I want to sweep when I go from one side to the other. Being that if I'm here and he walks into me, as it comes up, see, it stops him. If I came in this way, he would already be there. So it goes from the floor, sweep the floor with the back stance. Sweep the floor with the back stance. And the opposite is true as well. It checks. Okay? So, in the final stance is the center stance, which we use for our Espada Daga. It's in the middle. So, if you're looking at classical swordsmanship, Jodan no Kamae, which is high stance, Geidan no Kamae, Chudan no Kamae, Waki no Kamae, and Hasso no Kamae. If you're looking at it Japanese, same thing in broadsword, anywhere across the globe, see it's universal. Okay. So, now we're going to start working, is we're going to work our stances, and we're going to go ahead and look at some new Seguidas. We're going to look at the same stuff we know from a little different idea. So this echoes a lot of what Renee was showing. So the first thing we're going to look at is from this position right here. My first strike is going to be a thrust, like this. This is the Espada, right? So from right here, I have a lunge and a high thrust. Lunge and a high thrust. That's just the Espada. Lunge and a high thrust, lunge and a high thrust. When I add in the Daga, I'm going to use a elastico cut. I'm going to tap here and come down this way. So, 1, 2, back to retraction. High guard, cut, retraction. However you retract. It doesn't have to be this way. It can be. It can be as simple as here, tap, cut, center guard. Thrust, center guard. Okay, principle in motion. This is for you level 5 and aboves out there. You've seen this. This is your sombrado. So we thrust low. 1, 2. There we go. Okay. Anytime I want this, what this means is when I'm coming in this way, I'm just going to use this weapon to clear everything. There it is. Once I pick the foot up, it collapses everything and it brings him into close range. So I'm just finding the point anywhere. If it's there, it'll work. If it's there, it'll work. If it's there, it'll work. Okay? So that's number 1. Here, then down. Classically, from this position, he comes in, and I go 1. There it is. Sorry. So there's 1. Okay? I'm hitting the shoulder on purpose, the brachial, or I'm hitting the hip. Because if I go in the body, it'll go through the body and it won't stop the motion. If I hit him in the hip, he stays still and his head comes forward. If I hit him in the brachial, he leans back. And so I keep my range, but I'm also getting a good target. If I go midsection to something soft, I sink and then I'm in range. So I always want to make sure that if I'm going to do midsection, I'm here, or I'll go high to move him out of the way. Okay? So that's number 1. Number 2 is going to come off the low position here. So we're going to play a game of counters. We're going to pretend I came in with my 1 and it didn't work, and he changed his direction on me. I'm going to pull my puño into my hip. This is how 4-wall blocks are done per Tuhon Rei. If you do this and it's pinned to your hip, you don't have to use your hand anymore. You can anchor it to your shoulder. This is a 4-wall block. Here's a little cheat sheet for you. Right here, he hits my sword as hard as he can. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing as if I had a block here. Doesn't change anything, right? It's just supported here. Now this hand is free. From this quadrant, if I hook my elbow or hook my shoulder, same idea. It's still supported. Okay? And that's all the way through. Anywhere I can find a hook into the body, I have stability and structure, and I don't need this hand anymore. I can assign it to something else like this or poking or whatever you want to do. Good stuff, right? So the second one's from here. I go here, he evades it. And from right here, I'm going to come down this way, and I'm going to rebound off the hip and pick the back foot up. 1, 2. So we're going to start Seguida 1, Seguida 2. It doesn't move backwards, it only moves in. Okay, so I get my range. So from flow, when I'm in this position here, as soon as I get this there, it enters at any time that I want. And it'll be successful, so I have to keep this in the back of my head. So with this technique, if I just isolate it, I'm from a low line position, he comes in with a shot, and then I'm just instantly here. If I'm really far, he reaches out, and then it's there. Okay? So this allows me to get really far reach without ever having to move my feet. To however many inches you pick straight off the ground, is however many inches you can send it out. So you get it the last second, boom, there it is, and it goes right in. Okay, so old school representation. From this position here, if you look at the angle from the stance, I'm behind my blade and it's hard to look at. But if Jason was to push on the tip of my weapon, it's completely stable. And it's anchoring me. You see the line from my weapon to my back leg. This is my lunge stance. So I should conceivably be able to throw him off balance with anything. Super stable. That's great. So a lot of the German guys, when I train with them, they like this one where they come off the knee. Boop. Same idea. Just use the hip. Okay. So from right here, he's getting ready to come in for something. Boom. And it just comes right in. And I aimed in the shoulder to get him away from me so he didn't stab me. Okay? So, Seguida number 1. Seguida number 2. With this one, I'm just parrying up or using it as a shield because this is going to come in pretty easy. All right. Okay, Seguida number 3 is going to we call it's coming from a low guard or a back guard, and it's what we call a negative angle. So we have footwork like this where I'm using a triangle that looks like this. What I'm going to do is on this angle, I'm going to flare out, get completely out of range, and almost show my back to keep the line. So one more time. 1, 2. I'm pivoting on that end of the triangle. Okay? 1, 2. When I'm right here, in real-time application, I'll drop my tip to a low guard. What I'm looking for is for them to step close to the tip. So if Jason's over here, and I use this in sparring a lot too, if I'm here, I'm already that close to him, and he doesn't realize it. It's easy to see here, but when I'm here like this, they don't catch it as much because it's low line. So the second he comes in with something, there it is. That's a classical representation of the idea. Okay? Negative angle. With an Espada Daga, as he comes in, I'm just literally thrusting straight through there, using it as a parry. Okay? So from Sombrada, when I want this one, all I'm going to do is find it in this position or here, and I'm going to thrust, and right when he makes contact, I'm going to step off line, and it's going to go in anyways. Because if he keeps his weapon here, it's strong. Push on it. Once I step back, it changes the line. You see how my guard just pushed it out of the way? So he can't block it. So, negative angle. 3. Okay, good. Good. All right.
You have plenty of time.
Good. Let's chain these together. Yeah. Cool. So, something to think about, because I'm seeing, here's what I like about training with tall people. This is why I train with Bryce. That's why I like watching Tim. It's because he can use his body, and he has a whole nother level that is inaccessible to us normal people. We can't stab from the heavens down on mere mortal men, right? So, what he's doing is he's going palm down because it fits his body mechanics, which is perfect. This, for me, because I'm shorter, is a little trickier, and I'm trying to get the blind spot in the side of the eyeball. With this, when you step over, it's just a matter of following the tip at a 45-degree angle, and that fits in perfectly into the armor. The other side of it being same Seguida from the low line, just off of this. So it's kind of non-telegraphic, because if you look at it, when it comes in, there's really nothing to see until it's already in. So if you can see how that looks right there. Whoop, and then it's already in by the time it hits. Okay? Okay. So the next one is one I specifically thought about when Renee and Sonia and Metin and I were hanging out in Toledo. when I was looking at a lot of the swords, there's a lot of Spanish swords that are cup hilt rapiers or have really big handles on them. And so what ends up happening with that is you've got a little extra playroom that you might not have with this. So here's the practical representation of what that looks like with the correct weapon. So here is, essentially this is what they call a bastard sword, but it's the same basic configuration that you would have for any kind of cup hilt rapier. So with this, what I'm going to do is use elastico. I'm going to use my hand as a cup, and I'm going to go this way, and I'm going to catch it, and I'm going to load it into my hip, just like we did before, this angle here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it back, and then I'm going to fire. It's like an arrow, I'm going to pull it back, and I'm going to let it fire. So, boom, this way. If I have a shield or another sword, let's use this. What I'm going to do with this cup hilt is I'm going to actually take it, and we go into our center guard position, and I'm going to load this way so it compresses, and then I'm going to release it, right? However, here's the trick, right? We don't have that. So here's what I figured out instead. I'm going to take my finger, and on my sword, I'm going to make my own cup hilt rapier. You see that right there? I'm just going to make this sign right there. Got you, right? Yeah, same position, right? So what I do is when I come from here, I'm going to put my fingers in here, right? Just like this, and I'm going to load it. I use this with a stick a lot during sparring. It works great. So I'm going to load it back on that position, and then I'm going to fire from there. So I trace the blade. I don't have to look at it. I can feel it. It runs in line. This goes into my hip, and then I fire. So that's number 4. That's the elastico. Boom. Now with your espada, we're going to compromise, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tip. This is my design. These are my specific Espada Daga set. But if you use the one from FCS, it's going to have some stuff there for gripping thumbs, which works to your advantage. So you're going to take it like this. It's going to catch your thumb at a center line position. And then from right there, boom, fire. Fire. It can go flat. It can go straight on. And there's your number 4. Okay? Load. 1, 2. Load. 1, 2. Okay? So Jason's over here. One thing to look at. Footwork matters. With this, I'm not going to use a lunge. I'm going to use the almost the bird stance or the backward stance. And here's why. A lot of times, if I'm coming off a counter that's unsuccessful, I redirect into this position, and if I load it from here, and my feet are together, if Jason shoots in, I can use that footwork to get the thrust on the way out, because my feet are together. So it's a matter of just picking up my back foot, and then it'll fire. If he retreats on me, then I can just extend out from that position. But if I'm in a big stance, it's a lot harder if he shoots in real quick. I have to do something different, and I have to let go of the technique. So from right here or right here, it's either backwards or it's forward into the lunge stance. So you can fall into the lunge stance or you can spring out into the lunge stance. Okay, so from right here, 1, 2. All I'm looking for is a point where my hands cross. Boom, there it is. Okay, my hands came here, and I thrust it one more time. Boom, and then there's my 2. Okay, that's an elastical lunge. There you go. So 1, 2. See how that dude's doing. Okay, good. Good. Some people are actually working. That's good. Awesome. Okay. So, the last Seguida, the 5th one, right? This is going to be the concept of centripetal motion or perpetual motion, which means that the energy keeps going. So one of the oldest techniques for parrying frontal thrusting assaults is the redondo. But we don't do a redondo this way. We do a redondo this way. It's the same thing, I have redondo down. Now I'm just going to keep it spinning. I'm going to change my angle. Ta-da! There it is. We call that a filter block. Any of you guys doing Chinese martial arts have seen a Jin sword, where you've seen these kinds of positions this way, and these kinds of filtering motions that allow for that technique, okay? Why straight? And the answer of why you're filtering a straight attack is that rapiers or these kinds of long swords have their power in the thrust and in the long. So it's a competition between lines. I've gotten the chance to experiment a lot with classic Espada Daga, the precursor to what we do. And the knife that they have is not really for stabbing, it's only for creating an angle to get your thrust down. It's only to clear the path for the sword. So everything's in these tight lines. So in the spirit of that, here's the idea. I'm in a lunge stance. Say Jason's over here. But what I'm going to do is, as I'm circling this technique right here, if I just keep doing Seguida number 2 in front of him, whatever he throws at me is just going to kind of go away. You know what I mean? 1. So that's a part of it. The other part of it is that as I do this, I'm going to transition back to draw him in. Okay? So as he's coming in, I transition back and I launch into the line. So I'm covering all my 3 basic stances with my footwork. Okay? I'm going from the lift over to the lunge and through. Whatever is there, it's going to go over top of and pin down. So as he comes in, I clear it out. Even if he wants to make cruzada, okay, let's pretend that this is a solid guard. I'm going to aim offline because I don't want to stab him in the throat. That would be bad. So if I'm here and that's being blocked, once I'm in this position here, okay, I'm going over top of that. So once he reaches out for a block, boom, there it is, and it comes straight down. So the key being the manipulation of drawing in the range, parrying something offline, he comes in with something, and then whoop, boom, there's the connection point from here to here. If I want to do it from a corto, it becomes what we would call the assisted lasso. So this is my last mean technique I'll show you, right? We'll assume that, okay, I have my classical setup where all this stuff came from here, right? So, from here he comes in with a 1. Okay, from this position here, I have a disarm. So from this position here, he comes in with something. There's a disarm there, okay? Just pretend that hacked your hand, right? There we go. So once I'm shooting in, I'm going to grab him, and here's the same principle. I'm going to use the blade on the side of the neck to pressurize the lunge, and then there's the release for similar, but this is technically what we would call the elastico lasso. So, one more time, he comes in, I can go 1, let's pretend he drops the weapon, 2, I'm going to hack at the joint, block the weapon, I'm going to yank, I'm going to get him in close for a lasso, I'm going to put his head right there. I'm in a position now with my feet where I'm in that loaded stance this way, and I'm going to lift my front leg and I'm going to dump his head that way, but use the acceleration to ride the technique in if I have multiple people behind him. So, that would be here with the Espada Daga, with the handle. So he comes in, we'll play the classical Espada Daga game right here. Boom. Disarm comes in. Disarm comes in. Now from this position here, I'm going to use the back of the Espada Daga to bring it into the neck, load it on the side here, and this is going to shear while I get my cut. Okay, that's just a corto representation of that concept. All right, so in flow, each one of these things links together if they miss. So we'll pretend I come in and he zones out on my number 1. He zones through, I'm checking this way and I miss. Now from right here, that's where I'm coming in this way for the shot. If I come in here and I miss again, and he comes offline, if he's thrusting at me, it doesn't matter. I'm coming offline this way, and there's my thrust here. For some reason, that doesn't work, and he yanks out of the way. He's pulling. I'm going to catch this here, and then I'm going to fire. And the whole time, this is here to clear the way for the sword. Okay? Let's say he's really, really good, and I'm going after him, and he's just zoning out because he can feel all that. And now I'm just gonna kind of take the defensive and keep this going. And when he comes in, that's where I'm gonna come straight through with it, okay? And I'm gonna kind of convince him to come in and open his structure so that I can then pin him to the floor, okay? So these all chain together from a LARGO perspective. You know, miss, redirection, offline, thrust, explode, through. And they chain from one to the other if you want to look at them as just the Espada. If you want to look at them as the Espada Daga, in the classical sense, I'm using this to clear the path for the more powerful weapon. Now, likewise, it's important to understand with classical FCS, when we look at our Seguidas, when Tuhan taught me the Seguidas, he taught them to me how the first generation learned them. And so the first thing he did is he grabbed a spear or he grabbed a long sword. And this is all we did. Look at Seguida number 1. Jason's over here. He's got his center position. And he just did the first part. Slide entry in. That's the whole point of doing this slide entry. The weakness of this or a lengthy weapon is once he bypasses the tip, okay, I'm easy pickings for the head on either side, right? So that's why the energy is moving into this position and holding. But if I have an equal or longer weapon, the danger becomes getting out. The danger becomes how to keep it in a LARGO range, which is equally as difficult as controlling his probability of what he's going to do next. Okay? So, let's see. So the last thing I'll do, just to kind of show you, I'm going to integrate these concepts into our basic Seguida number 1 we do for the curriculum. Because this is how I do my Seguidas anyways, because the curriculum is just a catalog of techniques of basic body mechanics. And just like being a better reader means you can read better books, as you get better in the art, you grow in the art, you're able to squeeze more out of what concepts are there and you're encouraged to. So with that, if I look at classical Seguida number 1, okay, from this position, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, retreat. Okay, so I'm going to add these concepts in and I'm going to make this a 3-dimensional shape for you. So, number 1, from right here, as the shot comes in, I'm going to step back. I'm stepping back so that when he comes in, I extend the arm fully. Okay, if he's thrusting and I do this, he's going to have a fully extended arm and it becomes easy to capture. That's the point of that. So, 1, I could even come up with a cut, okay? So on part 2, as I come in, there you go. And I'm picking this up. I'm going 1, 2, and I'm picking that back foot up to get the extra range. 1, tap, clear, 2. As I'm coming up, I'm gonna angle offline. 2, this way, right? So he comes in, I extend the arm. I come in, this clears from right here, boom, comes straight down, there's the cut. If he comes in from right there, there's the motion there. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back to center. So I'm using center, back, forth, negative angle, okay? So after the negative angle, positive angle, back to center, okay? So, 1, it's easier to see this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm taking one move that happens in a line and I'm breaking it into sections. We're going backwards, bending the range, we call it. Bending the range backwards, bending the range forward, negative angle, positive angle, return to the center for structure. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions? No? Here, let me look around. So I know that was a lot. That's a mix, and here's why. Is because I know a lot of you guys you don't have a partner. but I want to show you from, we call it in the United States, cradle to grave, which basically means the inception of the idea on a very basic level of where did it come from, where the actual footwork of the original styles were in play, and how we can use it to better do the things we're doing now. Because the idea of just getting past that initial thrust prompted everything we have here, but we have now better technology, better friends. I have international friends I get to hang out with that make me smarter and better on a daily basis, right? And so as we have better information, we try to refine the ideas. And so as we see them represented in the curriculum, those ideas are frozen in the time that they were used against that specific threat. So as people get better, I have to look at someone Tim's size and say, how would I do this against somebody his size? Because this won't work for me because he's too big. Yes. And this is why me and Bryce train so much, right? A lot of my geometry does not work against a larger person, so I have to refine with better idea, better thoughts, and better friends. So I just want to say thank you very much to my European family.
Cody.
Yes, sir.
There's a question from Chris Thornton. Hey, Cody, what's the difference between your positive and negative angles?
Okay, so it's just a way of thinking, but here's the thing is, if I'm standing in this position, a negative angle means that the angle is going to happen by passive movement, like yin-yang. Yang is positive, moving into, making happen. Yin is negative, or allowing to happen. So if I have my blade here, yin means I'm going to walk out of the way and let you run into the blade. Yang means I'm going to actively seek the line and seek the entry. So there are two ways of every technique in FCS. There is the yin and the yang, the positive energy and the passive negative angle energy. Every technique is this way. Some have both. Does that help?
Hopefully.
I thought I saw another question. I couldn't catch it though.
It said something about piggybacking off of Chris, but then I couldn't.
Can you show it with Jason? I think was the next question.
The negative? Yeah, I'll show the negative angles. I'll show it in a way that you can see it's kind of obvious, which is a stick. Some things you already know. So to piggyback off of what Tim showed earlier. So it's amazing. All the things you are training are things that I think about daily. This is good. So if Jason swings, I can either come out of the way, or as he swings, I can come into the way. Okay, so that would be the same exact move, this move. He comes in, there's yin, negative angle. There's yang, positive angle with framing. And now I can move him. Okay, and the same idea, that's just in a straight line. We have to also think of our full triangle. Because in FCS, we don't really have triangle footwork, we have pyramid footwork. It's three-dimensional. So there's high, low, angling lines. So this is the basics of old school FCS, as we call the interwinding triangle, or the prism footwork. So it goes up and down as well as out. So with the same thing, if I just take something basic like a side step, this is yin energy. As I move out of the way, poke, poke, I get the same angle as if I stepped offline and went yang, pop, and I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna offline. It's about how I'm trying to get to my goal. If I'm trying to get to my goal by letting him stab himself, it's a negative angle. If I'm trying to get into it because I'm trying to force outcome, it's a positive angle. And if you think of it that way, it will always, the geometry always lines up. If you think, do I want to do, or do I want to evade? So this is the core concept. Anything can be done this way. So, are we good?
Yes, perfect. Thanks a lot, Cody and Jason.
Yes, thank you.